forgive me, I can't stop loving you. Don't deny me this pain I'm going through. Please forgive me, I need you like I do. Please believe me, every word I say is true. Please forgive me, I can't stop loving you.
What is wrong with most of you? I genuinely am concerned. If you are supporting Mark Carney, you are supporting more of the homeless problem, more of the death by drugs and addiction, more of the renting crisis that we have, housing crisis that we have, GDP loss that we have, the debt that we have, you know, and yet you people support this from your protected palace, removed from all the scary things in this world. You know, someday reckoning gonna come a call. And then everybody out there that supported this craziness, it'll all be online for the history of the world to see. We'll be able to judge you based on your decisions, your actions, and the way you spoke about everyone else that needed help. I cannot wait for the day. I cannot. You support a complete failure. You got people starving on the street, but you want to send money to other countries. You're broken. Bunch of talking heads.
Oh God, another thing that was crazy about Generation X, I don't even know if you can talk about this anymore, but we did this thing, it is so weird, okay. It was called critical thinking, and it's so crazy. So basically what you would do, this is like in the old days, you would listen to both sides of a story or a topic or an issue, and then you would make your own, this is crazy, you'd make your own opinion that would then guide you through life.
Welcome back, everybody, to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. Sunday, well, noon here in Arizona, afternoon in New Jersey. And once more, let's go into the breach. Mark Carney is an enemy of the United States.
No question.
There's no question. And here's the thing, too. See the guy in your clip that you sent me, the guy in the middle, right, talking about how you want to send money to foreign countries? He's the enemy of Carney. Okay, because he's a normal, sane Canadian who's saying, all right, we got people starving on the street. You want to send money overseas. Well, we do the same thing, by the way. The $400 billion that we sent to the little homosexual Zelensky, okay, when we have our own people starving on the street. But then again, people are mostly starving on the street in blue states because that's what blue states want. They want ultra rich, ultra poor. We've covered that at the front line with Joe and Joe a million times. Go look at California. You got a homeless guy defecating on the gutter, right in the foreground, and right in the background, you have people eating foie gras and drinking Grey Goose at an outdoor cafe. And they don't care that the guy's pooping at the curb. All right. That's what it is. Mark Carney, I mean, it goes, and I say this all the time, it goes to show that elections have to be rigged because I don't believe the people of Canada are buying all this. I really believe that all the elections are rigged. Many people do, Joe Resinello. We both know that. Many people say, well, Mark Carney, he's going to be a great leader, okay? He's making a deal with China. And here's the thing, too. He's got to have an agenda. China can't do for him what the United States could do for him. Trading with China is not going to save Canada. China, nobody ever wants to tell you, Joe Resinello, underneath, internally, their economy is a mess.
No, I've heard that.
Okay? You listen to people who know a lot about economics and finance and everything else. They're in a lot of trouble. So when Mark Carney goes and makes a deal with them, what is he saying to the Canadian people? You know what he's saying? F you. I don't care. I have an agenda. I'm a globalist. I'm an elitist. Joe Resinello, help me out a little bit.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next clip in terms of how Mark Carney is viewed, particularly from Steve Bannon's perspective. But that was a power move on Carney's part, to be truthful with you. Clearly, they need help, and he's looking to the adversary of the West, China. What he's not thinking about, and this is basically what Bannon brings up, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Do you actually think the United States of America is going to tolerate that? Here's the deal. Even if AOC was elected, we've seen no matter who the president is, foreign policy in America is not dictated by the president. It's
You
dictated by
don't
the
think you don't think this has more to do, and again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not sure. It's a legit question. You don't think that if Biden was in office or Obama was in office or somebody on the left, Carney would have, you think he would have still done this?
to be truthful with you, we'd still be in partners with Canada because they'd be globalists as well. There would be no issue. The issue is the worldview is changing. America doesn't see the world the way Canada and Europe does anymore. And we'll talk about this too as the show moves forward. I think NATO is done as a result of Greenland. Over. However, getting back to this China thing, if he ever said, we're going to put some type of base, some type of allow you, dude, America has used the CIA to have coups to turn over countries. There is no way that the United States of America would tolerate that. Like, even if AOC was the president, they would tell her, the State Department, the CIA, they're autonomous. It doesn't matter who the president is. We've seen that in time and time and time again. This move was foolish. It was bravado. It was a power move. And there is going to be consequences as a result of that. Again, Donald Trump does not play around. Donald Trump, if you got the wrong guy, like him, hate him, do whatever you want to do.
Hey, listen, whether you applaud the move with Maduro in Venezuela, you got to say that what that move backs up what you just said. Trump's not playing games.
No, he's not playing around. And even economically, he could hurt Canada horribly. And here's the deal. If you make aggressive moves with China, allowing them, he could, to be honest with you, what stops him from overturning your country? He's done it. The CIA have done that in other parts of the world. Who say that they wouldn't do that in Canada?
Well, we're going to talk about it in a little bit. We're going to get the show going here with Steve Bannon. But here's one of the things too: either you use the CIA, okay, and it's just the reality of the situation. Love or hate the CIA. We know that we, as Catholic men in America, we need to distrust. I have a distrust, unlike I had in my life. I used to support CIA actions, covert operations. I don't anymore. I don't think we should overturn governments. Okay. But Trump's, and we're going to play this in a bit. Trump's showing a willingness. You know what? I don't have to send in the CIA. I'm going to slap tariffs on your ass.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You think about France. You think, Joe, we'll get into this in a minute when we talk about that. Actually, I'm going to save that thought to when we get to the tariff conversation, when it comes to Greenland and everything else. But let's go. Let's stay with Carney. Let's stay with China, and let's go to Steve Bannon.
Carney is an enemy of the United States. It's obvious. He's partnered, as they've been infiltrated by the Chinese Communist Party and radical Islam. They love beta males. They feast off beta males like Carney. They feast off these people. What he did in Beijing was tantamount to an economic declaration of unrestricted warfare against the United States of America. And this is why President Trump's been hammering him. The Canadians, it's your problem, and you better clean it up.
Well, he's absolutely right. We have a really good crowd going right now. We have all of our friends. Trevor's in there. Carol Benne's in there. Antonella, Trevor, Zania. But Carney, Antonella says Carney just announced the bomb said, I heard this, by the way. We are working with China towards a new world order. Again, why is it, Joe? I think everybody should be listed to the front line with Joe and Joe. We've been saying that for the longest time. When the words new world order meant you were a conspiracy theorist, Carney just said it. Did you see that this week?
I did. I don't know if he meant it. I mean, I don't want to take it out of context. I did see it, and I took it with a grain of salt. I personally think he was referring to the world is shifting. Alliances are shifting. That's clear because I do think NATO is finished. I don't see us partnering with countries like France, partnering with countries like the UK or Germany for that matter. We see the world differently. And I think that's what he was referring to, as opposed to how like other people view the New World Order. I could be wrong though. So that's why I didn't kind of like touch on it, but it's a valid point. And frankly, as a person who's a statesman on that type of stage, talking to the leader of China, I would have chose my words a little bit more carefully if I was him. I wouldn't have used that phrase because there's a lot of implications to that. You know,
Do you
that
think maybe that was deliberate on his
it's
part?
possible. I think it was a power move. Joe, this was a power move from Carney. He's trying to send a message to Trump, but here's the deal. I don't think he has any cards to play.
That's my question. What cards do you have? We're going to talk about Alberta. Do you know that there is an organic movement
Yes.
in Alberta
Legit.
to secede from Canada? Canada's done. If the United States exerted real force and supported the people of Alberta that want to secede from Canada and become part of the United States, we're going to talk about Greenland too. All these things that are seemingly, that's impossible. That's never going to happen. What are you talking about? We got a guy in office, and listen, Donald Trump has done a lot to piss us off, especially lately when it comes to abortion. We won't get into that today. We'll get into that probably next week. But not for nothing. The guy does things that most people say, oh, he can't do that. I could see that in a possible scenario where Alberta, we do annex Greenland and we take over Greenland. And Alberta says, you know what? We don't want you, Mr. Carney. And we're going to use every means at our disposal, including the economic and military support of the United States of America, to secede from your godforsaken country because we don't want to be a part of your New World Order. Am I talking out of my you-know-what, Joe?
Well, ultimately, I guess Danielle Smith has to like kind of read, the tariff cards, for a lack of a better way to explain it. She has to basically gauge the people, because a lot of people probably wouldn't be for that. However, I think, and we're going to play some voices from Alberta, they're looking at it from the perspective of their children. Life is not going to be as it was in Canada for some time. This man is making serious moves to change the way Canada does business. And that has nothing to do with helping the middle class.
No.
Nothing. And a lot
zero.
of people see that. I think there's a lot of people see that. But then there's the nostalgia. People want to hold on to the nationalism. They want to be a part of, and I can't fault them for that. That's their country. However, when push comes to shove and you don't see a future for your family, because you're not an elite, you don't come from that type of, family like line, you're working people, and you're giving more than half your money to taxes that are frankly being wasted on stupid ideologies, going overseas. You're basically barely making it.
Yeah.
People may change their mind, and that's what's going on in Alberta right now.
No, and listen, and my thing is that, more power to him. I would welcome Albertans.
So would I. I think it would be a huge win. I think it would be a win for them.
Would you say that again?
I think it'd be a win for them.
I think it would be a huge win for them. Listen, you're talking about oil reserves up there. Remember, Joe, people always say, well, if you only have oil, but when you have oil and then you could refine that oil, or you could extract that oil and you could trade that oil, and then that leads to other industries, and that's how an economy flourishes. That's why Venezuela, let's be clear, that's why it was an attraction for so many people, immigrants from Europe, to go to Venezuela. I told you before, my great uncle went from Italy to Venezuela and made a lot of money in textiles. The point is for Alberta and their economy to be part of an economy that's not looking to go like this to them and keep them under the thumb. Welcome them in a second. Of course, it would help us with cheap oil, okay? And cheaper energy. Great, but it would be a boon for their economy, and they won't have an oligarch like Carney and now Xi Jinping having some sort of a say. Let's face it. What is China going to do? Is China going to do? Here's a question, Joe Restanello, for you. Is China going to do anything that's in the interest of the Canadian people?
Nothing.
Or are they going to do, they don't even do what's in the interest of their own people because they're a brutal communist regime. How do you expect that they're going to do anything good for the Canadian people. They're doing this to form this, whether he meant it this way or not, Joe, to keep the New World Order moving forward. But Xi Jinping's not doing anything that's going to benefit Canada. Nothing.
Well, here's some irony for all the Canadians out there that are all for the globalism, all for the green economics. You're partnering with a nation that absolutely disregards all of that. With all our faults as Americans, with all our faults, we are in many ways very environmentally conscious.
Absolutely.
And that is undisputable. That's undisputable. As far as recycling, as far as like emissions,
cleanliness.
Oh, no question. I mean, China and India are some of the worst violators of that. So this is where the schizophrenia with political ideology gets in the way.
Good word.
All the people who vote for their political identity aren't thinking critically, because you're partnering with the nation. If the environment is your thing, you're partnering with arguably the worst violator of it.
Yeah.
The worst.
Absolutely. Joe, I got to give a few shout outs here because we have a great for a Sunday afternoon. A lot of our friends who I mentioned earlier are in. We have about 40 watching right now. We need that to get up to about 1,000. So everybody start, spread. Jimmy Parnell's joining us. We always see Jimmy in there, and many others. So we got a good chat going on right now in this conversation here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Let's stay on Canada for a second, okay? If that's all right with you, Joe. Here's what's going on in Alberta. So now the video goes on from there. There was another clip there, but it's a little bit too long. And so I want to get back into the conversation. But here's my thing. People would say, well, that doesn't look like much of a crowd. It's cold in Canada. It was dark in that video. And people are out there to sign a petition for independence. If the people decide at some point they are going to peacefully revolt against Canada and make an appeal to Donald Trump, okay? Again, I see in that video a will and a willingness on the part of the people of Alberta to say, we don't want this, and we're not going to just let you walk all over us. We do not want this. And remember, the economic engine of Canada is Alberta, and that's because of the oil in the ground. That's the reality of the situation. All right, so the political power might be in Ottawa, but the economic power in Canada is in Alberta. It would be devastating to Mark Carney and his people, and unfortunately be devastating to a lot of other people in Canada. But the thing is, the Albertans are showing they don't want the New World Order. But you go down to Ontario, which again, it's more cosmopolitan, all right, down where Toronto is and everything else, all right. Quebec is gone. We know that. You've been there a million times, and because of you, my wife and I have been there a few times, all right. Quebec is gone. All right, it's, as far as that's concerned, they're the ones that are going to suffer. But I say, then let them suffer. But they can't use Alberta and the economic power that comes from Alberta because you want to support an oligarch like Mark Carney. I know that's a bit of a rant, Joe. I'll throw it over to you.
Believe it or not, because I've done a little research on this topic this week. The indigenous people, the Canadian Indians, indigenous Indians, are not for oil being the pipeline, which I found to be a little shocking. And I don't know their angle, and I don't want to speculate on it. So there are voices in that part of the world that are against this. I don't know why. Again, just for your own future and your family's future, because Mark Carney is dialed in. He's dialed into a future that is going to decimate the Canadian people. It already has, and it will continue to do so. But I also want to share this thought with our Canadian viewers. We have a lot of them. There's a lot of people in the chat. I have a goal, and this is my goal. I want to be banned from Canada because of this show. I want to be banned from Canada because of the front line with Joe and Joe. I have been thrown out of many places. I have never been thrown out of a country. It is one of my lifelong goals, and I want you to help me accomplish it. I want to
That
throw
means
that
you got
out
to
there.
share this video with all your friends in Canada. And we're going to be talking about a bunch of things today here at the front line with Joe and Joe. We started with Canada and Carney making a deal with China. Albertans, they're saying, we don't want this. We're going to talk about Greenland. Keir Starmer just got figuratively punched in the face on his digital ID. And we got some Donald Trump to cover. I believe it's with the putting a cap on interest. I think Trump might be
10%.
listening to the front line with Joe and Joe. Even though if he was, he would ban all usurious interest. But we'll see how that works out. But yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. It would be less interesting if this was a country that was across the ocean, but they are our neighbor. Okay. And listen, as far as it goes, our neighbors are not exactly friendly right now. When you look at Mexico to the south, when you look at Canada to the north, they hate us because we had the audacity to vote against the oligarchs when we voted for Donald Trump. And Trump, at least in this regard, the guy's got the gloves off, and that's what has them worried. So you're with the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. Please share this video wherever you're watching it across X, Facebook, YouTube. So let's talk about Greenland.
The U.S. push to acquire Greenland. This just in, President Trump posting on Truth Social that he is serious about putting tariffs on countries that do not support the United States acquisition. Now, starting February 1st, he says there will be a 10% tariff on a number of European countries. That will rise to 25% in June and will continue to ratchet up until a deal is reached. So tariffs on those who do not support the U.S. acquisition of Greenland. Tariffs have worked to great effect in a number of these high-stakes situations. Mexico comes to mind during the first term. They put troops on their northern border after Trump threatened tariffs. We will see what these European countries do. We'll keep a close eye and keep you abreast of any developments.
Everybody think in France, in the European Union, that Greenland is not to be sold, not to be taken. The situation in Greenland is clearly a wake-up call for all the Europeans. And let me tell you very directly that you are not alone. And when a strategic message is sent to you, I want just for you to know that it's clearly perceived by the Europeans as targeting a European land. And this flag you have here is our common flag. And we know our common values. And we know our long-standing choices. And this is why it's very important for French people and all the European people to convey very clearly this message of solidarity and the fact that we stand with you now, for today, and for tomorrow.
So let me go here, Joe Rossinello, just because I was chuckling. You couldn't see me, nor could the audience here at the front line with Joe and Joe. I'm chuckling. I'm going to give you the reason why. All right? Because it's rooted in reality. Everybody knows I work in the hospitality industry, okay? And I run a wine program for the company that I work for. And I know at the level that the restaurant I work for, okay, many thousands of restaurants in the United States, tens of thousands, serve French wine, French champagne. And we're not talking about some $12 swill you get at Costco. I'm talking about Dom Perignon and all these high-end French wines that come into the United States. Donald Trump if he was ever listening to the front line with Joe and Joe, if he wanted to take that little snippet that Macron just went through and just shut him up for good, he comes out tomorrow and says, until further notice, we have a 100% tariff on all French wines coming to the United States. You want to see how quick Macron changes his tune? You want to see how fast he shuts up? If the people of Greenland want to be part of the United States and they make a deal, and we make a deal with Denmark, who I believe is the main player in Europe, am I right, when it comes
Correct.
to Greenland? Okay. If I have you can fact check me on that. If I have my facts correct, we have to deal with Denmark. Okay. Tell Macron, kick rocks. Kick rocks. Because if I take that $500 bottle of wine that we sell to our guests and now it costs $1,000 because we put a 100% tariff on you, guess what you're going to do? You're going to shut up, go back into your hole, all right, and worry about France. Don't worry about what we're doing. But they're scared. They're scared because of what you said last week. Greenland strategically, that nobody thought about before Donald Trump, okay? Strategically, it makes sense that we control Greenland and not Europe. Joe, I'm throwing it over to you.
Ultimately, there is some thought. Like, people could very easily dismiss this. Like, Donald Trump's crazy. He wants to buy Greenland. Well, if there is such a thing as the ice caps melting, there is sort of like a Suez Canal opening where shipping lanes will be moving through the Arctic. And that is something to think about. That is something that Russia would want to control, as well as China. There's also strategic elements in terms of protecting the United States. And what Donald Trump is basically saying is, you can't protect this region, but we can, and others are interested in it. So we are going to take ownership of it to protect it. Now, most of Greenland is uninhabitable. And I don't think it's necessarily for the rare earth minerals. I think it's purely from a strategic perspective to protect the United States, which in turn protects Europe. And what Donald Trump is basically saying is, I am going to pay you for it. Now, they're making a stink. That speech was nothing but bluster to appeal to his base. If Donald Trump wants to take it, he will take it. Now, here's something else that was revealed as a result of this move and what we basically did in Venezuela. When Julius Caesar, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, if I get my Roman history, my facts crossed the Rubicon, the Roman Empire officially went from a republic to an empire. And then that was the beginning of the end.
Well, that was just to clarify. I mean, look, it was a part of that move crossing the Rubicon at that stage of the Roman Civil War, which was going on for about 60, 70 years before then. It was a big move. The Civil War continued, but it did usher in at one point the establishment of Augustus in his reign. Not long after that, and then you had the Roman Empire for the next 400 years. Go ahead.
America, in many ways, has operated as an empire. It just was covert. We've done a lot of things. We've turned over a lot of governments. We've been doing for whether it was during Reagan's era with the Contra affair down in El Salvador. I mean, we can go on and on and on and on. I have no evidence towards this. I actually think that we had a hand under Biden with Bolsonaro not winning. I would not be surprised if that actually took place with Biden at the helm, or the auto pen at the helm for that matter. The point being is this: Donald Trump, with this Greenland move, it's out in the open. America is not a republic. The Congress, just as in Rome, when the Senate meant nothing, it was nothing more than a figurehead organization. The Congress in the United States means nothing. Zero. I give no credence to the voice from they're just noise. And frankly, the Senate, to a larger degree, is the same thing. Sure. Look at the caliber of people that are in Congress. It's nothing more than a circus. And that is exactly what happened to Rome. And we have crossed the Rubicon with that announcement of Donald Trump. It's no longer a hit, like a secret. America is an empire. It's protecting the idea that we have debt that we have no intention of ever paying back. We have to maintain global military dominance in order to protect the dollar being the leading currency of the world, and we will stop at nothing to do that. And he's showing his hand, in my opinion, based upon that statement. Because I don't know if any other American president would have said something like that. They may have acted on it. Don't think they wouldn't have, for all these liberals out there that are criticizing Donald Trump. Don't think Obama may not have acted on it. He just would have done it in a sneaky way. Donald Trump showed the cards. We are an empire. And if you ask me, it's an empire that's on the down. And there's going to be shifting in the United States.
Well, Michael Jones, he's been laying this out for the last several months. Again, he knows a lot about a lot. I mean, let's face it, he's a smart guy. And he lays out American history, and he says we're at the end of the Third Republic.
Yeah, I've heard him say it.
Yeah, so you got the Revolution to the Civil War, First Republic, then the Second Republic up to the end of World War II. And then from 1945, he says each one lasts about 80 years. He thinks the American empire is coming to an end. Okay. And he does point out the actions of the CIA since the end of World War II, when the OSS became the CIA, and basically just became a means by which the United States was going to exert power and influence all over the world, creating that American empire. He thinks this American empire is coming to an end. I think with what you're saying, I don't know that Donald Trump wants an American empire. Not if he's an America firster. Not if he is an America first guy.
But is he a purist on the America first issue? I don't think he is.
I don't think so. I think there's others out there. I firmly believe, and I think I've said this before here at the front line with Joe and Joe, Donald Trump, God spared Donald Trump's life. I do believe that, but not for Donald Trump's purposes, for God's purposes. That the end of the republic is going to be ushered in by the one who Donald Trump is a placeholder for. Now, who that is, I don't know, because there's an internecine battle right now going on the right. Okay, a lot of it has to do with American interventionism overseas and getting involved in things we shouldn't get involved with. Israel, all right, and the role that Israel plays in our foreign policy. These are all battle that's going on the right right now. We're going to see who on the right is going to win out. If you want to call or describe the right as a movement or a group of people and organizations that want to put American interests first and start to pull back from the world, take care of our people, take care of our economy, okay? Nick Fuentes made a good point. He made a good point about this coalition that he was talking about. One of the things Republicans have to give up if you want to have a strong governing coalition that puts America first, Republicans have to get up. I'm paraphrasing him. I'm not quoting him, but it's the way we would put it is you have to stop bowing at the altar of the free market, kneeling at the altar of the free market. Just you can't touch it. Like Joe, the free market has become like God to a lot of conservatives and Republicans.
It always has been.
Don't touch it. What I'm saying is it's a false idol. Don't touch it. Don't question it. Just let it function. Because if you do, if you mess with the market, you're going to get destroyed. The market's going to strike you down. Like they have this really godlike attitude towards the market. No, markets are good. They're useful. They're productive. They help raise people out of poverty. We agree with that. Okay. But you got a lot of problems on both sides on the right. And a lot of questions being asked and battles being fought. So I want to see what some people would say. It is in America's first interest to own Greenland. Maybe it is. Does that mean that we're still not going to pull back from the world in other ways and rein in what the CIA does? Again, these are questions. I don't have the answer for it right now. I want to see how things play out, and then I'll have more of an informed opinion on that. But what are your thoughts on that?
But interestingly enough, after the bluster of people like Macron, the Danish folks have voiced some, protesting. There's been other voices in Europe, the continent of Trump says you're going to pay for it. As of in a few weeks, he's raising the European tariff from 10 to 25%. And he's basically saying, not only are we going to negotiate and get it, but now you're paying for it. So Trump, the bluster was returned. You see, these people have, as I said about Carney, you have no cards to play. You have no cards to play. And it's, to be truthful with you, it's very sad because ultimately it started in Europe, it spread to Canada under the leadership. And this is no reflection to the people in the chat room as well as the Canadian people, because I don't believe a lot of them share the same belief system as your leadership. There are sick people, sadly, and they are sick and delusional, just as they are in America, who embrace an ideology that ultimately treats you as a useful idiot. But at the end of the day, this is a godless regime that is pushing an ideology that is anti-people, and it's ultimately leading to totalitarianism. And this is unquestionable. I don't even know if you can argue against that statement based upon what we've seen in the UK, what we've seen in France, what we've seen in Canada, beginning with the truckers. And it's moved all through that region, cutting down free speech, taking away farmers' rights. I mean, we could go on and on.
Go on and on. Yeah.
So
yeah.
my point is, the facts speak for themselves. This is what they're doing. And to be truthful with you, we don't share a common value with you anymore.
Right.
And that's why, to echo Carney's point, it is a new world order. And I think, to be truthful with you, at the end of Trump's term, and if J.D. Vance is to win, I think you're going to see many new alliances across the world.
Well, this goes. I was going to mention this earlier. You're talking about alliances with other parts of the world. When is the United States finally going to bite the bullet and say we're not in NATO anymore? NATO has outlived.
That's going to happen as a result of Greenland. What's that? I think once they annex Greenland, I think they're going to ask us to take our bases out of Europe. I think that's the next step.
I would say thank you very much.
Oh, I agree. 100%. Thank you.
NATO caused this war. NATO caused this war between Russia and the Ukraine.
100% agree.
That's an undeniable fact that you have to say. You expect what? Putin's going to do what you want him to do? Putin's going to do what's in the best interest of Russia, not what's in the best interest of France and Italy, Germany, England, and the rest of the European nations, the rest of the NATO nations, or that coalition, that alliance. Okay, Putin's going to do what he wants. Well, we could come right up to your border, and if you do anything, we're going to call you a naughty, naughty, naughty dictator. And Putin says, you know what? F you. What do you think? I'm just going to sit here and watch you creep up on Russia and I'm not going to do anything about it? What do you think I am? Any leader would do that. I don't care whether I like that leader or not. Any leader of a nation is going to react to NATO the way they did. NATO got us into this war. NATO's the one that is the reason why the little homosexual Zelensky has billions of dollars of our money in his pocket, while millions of people have died in this godforsaken war. And it's NATO's fault. It's not Putin's fault. It's NATO's fault because they're the ones you got to go to the one who started it. Whether or not you like Putin's reaction to it or not, you got to say, who caused this? NATO caused it. I would welcome leaving the Europeans to themselves. Okay, and you want to trade with the United States? We're putting a 50% tariff on all your products coming to the United States. You don't want to trade with us? You don't have to. And where am I going with my final point to what you just said? Let's find new trading partners. There are other nations that want to trade with the United States, and we could do so on a very friendly basis. Okay, we could set up. Let's say if we had alliances where we could have our corporations set up factories and mills and operations in those nations, so those people could get gainfully employed and their standard of living gets raised. They could trade with us. We could trade back. We could have a mutually beneficial economic relationship and trading relationship with a lot of countries in the world without having to worry about, and we're going to get into this in a second, Keir Starmer and Macron, who we just played a clip from, and any of the rest of them. Italy wants to trade with us. Hungary wants to trade with us. Poland wants to trade with us.
Joe, I'll be honest with you, this is going to sound very controversial. I actually think we have more in line with Russia than we do with the UK.
No, you are right.
I hate that right. People could misquote me. Like, I'm not saying that Putin's a great guy. But I am saying this. We have more in common right now with Russia than we do with many countries. in Europe.
I don't think that that's controversial at all. I'm gonna pull a Muhammad Ali line. Remember when they questioned Muhammad Ali when he didn't go into the draft and he wouldn't go to Vietnam, and they said, "Well, you know, you don't believe in fighting the enemy." And I, in my heart, I agreed with this, even though Muhammad Ali was a rabble rouser. But I happen to agree with this when he says, "Who's my enemy?" He goes, "Those people didn't do anything to me." But in America, I get discriminated against because I'm a black man. Black people, and he wasn't wrong about that. Okay, he certainly, if you're a realistic and honest American, you know that black people were discriminated against in our history. All right, leaving the race hunters aside, that's a fact. And he says, "Who's my enemy?" When you don't let me sit on the bus and all the different things that were going on, particularly in the South. In my heart, I say, well, you know what? He's got a point. I'm pulling the Muhammad Ali. What did Putin ever do to me? We're going to play Keir Starmer in a second. What about Macron? Do you think Macron's my friend? Because why? Because my government says he is?
Share
Or
any
Keir Starmer's
values
my
with
friend?
France. None.
What's that, Joe?
No values with France. No values with the UK. No values with Germany. Zero.
Right.
Russia is anti-woke. Russia is anti-globalism. Russia is pro-nationalism. Russia is also Christian.
Right.
So, and again, I don't agree with how Putin governs, but I just laid out a number of points where the majority of Americans, by the way, Trump won the popular vote and electoral vote. The people spoke. Share those points in common with the Soviet Union and absolutely positively have nothing in common with Europe and the leadership of Canada. That's why the Canadian people have to galvanize and get this man out and or secede from your part of the world or just become independent. If Alberta wants to become independent and doesn't want to be part of the United States, God bless you. But get out of that environment because it's anti-people.
Now, one thing I would tell you is this: when it comes to Putin and where I get a little tired of the double standards, you mentioned, Joe, the CIA. Joe, every single American president since the end of World War II has known about and sanctioned everything the CIA has ever done. From Kennedy, when the CIA took out Diem in Vietnam, okay? When you look at bombing Cambodia, when you look at all the things that we've done, when you look at the hundreds of thousands of Iraqis that died in a senseless war because of George Bush. So I'm blaming oligarchs. I'm not blaming Republicans or Democrats. Every single president, including the saintly Obama, all right, and the Otto Penn Biden, every president has presided over a CIA that has committed murder throughout the world. Murder throughout the world. And you're going to sit there and you're going to point the finger of judgment at Vladimir Putin as being somebody as brutal. You've killed as many people as he has. All you American presidents, every single one of you has killed as many as him. How about Kennedy escalating the war in Vietnam and Johnson escalating the war in Vietnam? All to feed the military industrialized complex. All the instances where the CIA has gone in at the bidding of the American president. And then Putin's the bad guy, or at least he's the only bad guy. He's Hitler. Oh, I mean, I love that one. He's not Hitler. Okay, he's not Hitler. He's not oppressing Jews in Russia. He's protecting the interests of the Russian people in the way he sees fit. And this is my larger point. The same way every single American president since the end of World War II has done the exact same thing. You can't judge that guy because you did the same thing. Democrats and Republicans included. Joe, I'm not wrong on that.
No, you're 100% right. Obama killed more people with drones than probably Trump did.
And he's a saint.
Well, they just choose not. Again, that comes down to political identity. They have selective vision, selective hearing on all of that. All of that. But let's go to Starmer. I think this is a very important point for all the people who think that this is conspiracy, the global ID, the global currency, because it's not conspiracy. It's real.
Let's start. We're going to go from Rupert Lowe, and then we're going to go to Keir Starmer, and then we'll come back and talk about them both.
Good evening, everybody. Good news. Keir Starmer has just announced he's abandoned plans to implement compulsory digital ID. I think this is hugely good news for all of us. It shows what can be achieved when sensible MPs get together and with public support make their views known. Over or nearly 50 MPs signed my open letter to Keir Starmer on this subject, to which we were implacably opposed. And I think we can say this is a victory for common sense. It's a victory for all of us. And we can safely say now that we retain our freedom. Another slice of it has not passed to an oppressive nanny state. We've got 3 more years to go, and we must collectively use this as the template to fight the nonsense that's being peddled and promulgated in this country now.
And X are disgusting and they're shameful. And frankly, the decision to then turn this into a premium service is horrific. And we're absolutely determined to take action here. We've made it clear that X has to act, and if not, Ofcom has our full backing and will introduce and are introducing legislation. Mr. Speaker, to update the House, I have been informed this morning that X is acting to ensure full compliance with UK law. If so, that is welcome, but we're not going to back down. They must act. We will take the necessary measures. We will strengthen existing laws and prepare for legislation if it needs to go further. And Ofcom will continue its independent investigation.
Now, this is how these two things tie in my view. Rupert Lowe is talking about fighting back against digital ID, right? Where are you finding all the pushback on digital ID? Social media.
People, 100%.
People, a free marketplace of ideas where Joe and Joe, from everybody from Joe and Joe on our level to the other Joe Rogan on his level, and everybody in between, this is where we could talk about it. So Rupert Lowe says there's a victory, and Keir Starmer is going to back off on forcing digital ID in England. Why does that tie into Keir Starmer's rant about X? Because X is where people are talking about it and where the pushback comes from. That's why. This is all about power, as we always say. Keir Starmer says it's disgusting, the things that are said on X. What do you think? There's no left-wing outfits out there that don't say disgusting? They want to shoot ICE agents in the face. They want to dox them so that the leftist thugs could go to their homes and attack their wives and children if they had the opportunity. Who's disgusting, Mr. Starmer? You're disgusting. You're disgusting because we know all you're about is power. All digital ID is about is power. And guess what? Rupert Lowe, who's spearheading this in England, and people on social media are the reason why Keir Starmer is railing about X, because social media, for as destructive as it can be, it could be more so useful in fighting back against oligarchs like Keir Starmer. That's why he went on that rant. And one last point. Don't mess with Elon Musk, Mr. Starmer. Don't mess with Elon Musk. He could squash you like a bug. The guy's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. If Elon Musk pulled the George Soros and started to use his money to fund political campaigns in the United States and other places, guys like you would never get elected. Go ahead,
I'll be
Joe.
honest with you. If you ask me, Elon Musk is by far, by the oligarchs, the most hated man in the world.
Absolutely.
Infinitely more so than Donald Trump. And you just saw an example of why. That is a fact. X is the reason why that did not pass. There is no doubt in my mind that the people would have been informed of the danger that a digital ID would bring to their lives if it wasn't for X. And that is exactly why they want to basically put that behind a wall. Many countries have expressed similar opinions on that. Brazil, France. They know that they have to control the narrative. This is a fact. That was a benchmark in human history, Elon Musk buying X. That is why Donald Trump is the president right now, is because of X and Elon Musk. That is a fact. And to be honest with you, that is the reason why many people are opening their eyes, seeing behind the curtain what has been going on in America probably since Woodrow Wilson, 1913, the destruction of the middle class. And people are slowly but surely getting educated, and the oligarchs are terrified.
me ask you
Hillary
a question.
Clinton had said it right out of her own mouth. We will have no control unless
That's right.
we control social media.
They tell you, well, listen, unlike 20, 25 years ago, they tell you in recent history, in the last 5, 10 years, they tell you now that they want control. They tell you that right to your face. No, we're for free speech. We just don't agree with misinformation and disinformation. Well, who determines what that is? Who determines? You? Do you determine what that is? What's Goldman, the Representative Goldman from New York? He says, well, we have to be on guard against misinformation and disinformation. Okay, who says that? Number one, number two, the First Amendment's protection of free speech doesn't mention misinformation and disinformation. You know what that means, Joe? In the public arena, I actually have a right to lie. Okay, politicians do it all the time, so I don't know if they have the right to do that. Why I can't? But if you think about the logic of it, the reason we have a free marketplace of ideas and freedom of speech is protected as the first right in the Bill of Rights, even before free expression of religion. Okay, is the right to free speech, is because if I say something that would be considered misinformation or disinformation, we have a free marketplace of ideas where someone else could turn around in that free marketplace, look at me and say, I think, and I could show that what you're saying is not true, Mr. Pasillo. And I say, well, go ahead. I think what I'm saying is true. And that's called communicating. That's called free speech. That's called real dialogue. I say something somebody doesn't like or thinks is untrue. They could come back and they could say, I don't think what you're saying is true. And guess where we could do it? We could do it on a free platform like X. That's why they hate it, because the reason why they want to shut it down is because everything that they say is a lie. And they hate the fact that conservatives are not looking. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Conservatives are not looking to suppress the free speech of leftist organizations, of leftist individuals. We're not. We just don't do it. If I don't like what you say, I'll get into your chat room, or I'll invite you at the front line with Joe and Joe, and we could have a conversation. That's what Tim Pool does. That's what Patrick Bet-David does. That's what Joe Rogan does. They say that's what Tucker Carlson does. The left chooses not to go on their shows, Joe, because they know that they're going into the lion's den. They're going into the buzzsaw of truth. They're going to be questioned. They're going to be their positions are going to be torn apart and critically thought about. They don't want that. They don't want that, Joe. That's why Elon Musk is the bad guy. How dare you give people the right to speak? Joe, I could say anything I want, as disgusting as it is, on X, but so could they. So could they. Nobody regulates it, because guess what? If you and I said disgusting things over and over and disgusting, hateful, false things over and over again, forget about having 40 or 50 or 1,000 people in your chat room. You'd have nobody listening to you. Zero. That's how the marketplace works. But they don't want that. They don't want that because it's a threat to them. They just want you to shut up, enjoy your 15-minute city, go out, get laid, get drunk, get high, do all that stuff, and we're going to control your ass from the time you're born to the time you're dead, and then see you, and we'll have all the power. That's what they're all about, Joe.
Joe, it just requires a little bit of critical thinking. A little bit of critical thinking. Ultimately, you can't consider yourself free if you can't speak. You're not free. If you can't say certain things, you're not free. And if what you say is stupid, to Joe Pasillo's point, then make me look stupid. There is no such thing as hate speech. If you say something that's inappropriate, it reflects on you, and someone else will frankly make you look stupid. That is the name of the game. And frankly, it's also healthy, because when you allow people to quote our good friends from the Seinfeld episode, to air their grievances, as Mr. Costanza would say, as one of the days on Festivus, it allows ideas to get into the ether. The pot doesn't boil. You want people to air their grievances in a healthy manner. And X, if you ask me, if something is crude, and there's many things that are crude that come up, I just scroll past them.
That's it.
Because I'm an adult. I'm an adult. I just scroll past that. There's many good things on X. Many good things, particularly this conversation about digital ID, particularly this conversation about digital currency, particularly what's about to take place at Davos. So pay attention to it. Donald Trump is going to Davos. All the world leaders are going to be there. They're going to be talking about you and your life and how they're going to control it. So you should pay attention to that. Where else are you going to get information about that as it's happening? On X.
Right.
It's a good tool.
Yep.
And it should be used.
No, it's absolutely right. But again, remember, this is the way they do things. Yes, but if you get your information on X, you're not getting your information from professional reporters and investigators and journalists. You all lie. Joe, one of the greatest things, one of the worst things that's happened in our lifetimes is COVID. And what did God do? God drew the greatest good out of that nightmare, okay, possible. And one of the fruits of God's work is that all the lies are exposed. All of this, the New World Order, guys like Mark Carney, Xi Jinping, all the oligarchs in the United States that want to control everybody, the Anthony Fauci's of the world, and people like that. It's all come out. They can't hide anymore. That's why they actually admit it. You mentioned Hillary Clinton says, well, we got to control X, right? Why? Why the need to control? I thought you were all about freedom. Oh, that's right. You're only about freedom when it comes to slaughtering children in the womb. That's the only time you're all about freedom. Or one guy marrying another guy, or a 1-year-old. Did you hear this one? A mother who wants to begin transitioning her 1-year-old to the other sex. That's the world we live in. But yet, when you criticize, this is why they want to control everything. Go to the professionals in the mainstream media. They'll have her on Good Morning America with her 1-year-old in her arms, talk about how she's going to transition and let her express herself. When children's services should go in and take that child away from that insane woman, okay? But the media will have them on and say, "Isn't it wonderful?" Who cares if you're a professional? I don't care if you have a degree from the Ivy League in journalism. What does that mean? You think that you have more of an insight into human life than Joe and Joe? Do you? Why? Because you went to Dartmouth? Because you went to Brown? Because you went to UPenn and you got a journalism degree? You're a professional liar with an axe. I don't have an axe to grind. Joe Rossinello, we don't have axes to grind. We're just here trying to be authentic truth seekers, to try to get to the bottom of things and have a conversation about. I don't need a degree on my wall to do that. I know how to read. I learned how to do that when I was in the first grade. Okay? I know how to read and I know how to critically think. That's all I need to do to be able to comment on all this. And the same with Joe Rossinello and the same with all the people in the chat room. We don't need you. That's my larger point, Joe. We don't need them to interpret the news for us. None. And that's what they hate, Joe. That's what
Absolutely.
they hate.
What else we got? We got some other good stories lined up.
Yeah, we got one more that I want to, at the very least, get to this one. So you mentioned Donald Trump. Let's pivot and go to Donald Trump and interest rates.
Cap on credit card interest rates because, some of them are 28, almost 30%. And the people don't know they're paying 30%. The people out there, they're working and they have no idea that they're paying 30%. No way. We're putting a 1-year cap at 10%, and that's it. They know it. They've really abused the public. The credit card companies have totally abused it. I'm not going to let it happen.
Okay, so now I agree. Let me throw Donald Trump. And by the way, I want to emphasize everybody out there, okay? I know I speak for Joe. I voted for Donald Trump 3 times, but the dude pisses me off, all right? Here's one of the ways that he pisses me off. All right, Mr. President, good start. Tell the credit card companies that, for a year, you can't charge more than 10%. And that includes fees and penalties. That get included into that 10%. So it can't be 10% plus. It's, 10%. The amount of the balance that a person has, they owe $10,000. You can't charge more than 10%. It's still usury, Mr. Trump. And you're not addressing the real problem. The real problem is the fact that people can't afford homes, and people can't afford homes because a $500,000 mortgage costs the average American $500,000 in interest over the course of 30 years, and they don't even have 20% equity in the home for 12 years, to the point where they even have 20% ownership of their own home. You want to address something, Mr. Trump. I hope that you're using this this action against the credit card companies, and you're going to springboard from there. Hopefully you get this done. I'll applaud you and support you in that. But you have to talk about usury in general. You have to talk about the way homes are financed, the way cars are financed, the way any big ticket item is financed, and usurious compound interest has to be abolished. It has to be abolished. And we need a new system of lending people money. And institutions will be created that will conform to the new system, but the banks are going to take a shave, because you can't sit on your fat ass and make money by stealing the labor of everyday Americans in the form of usurious compound interest. This is not me talking, even though I happen to agree with it. Go see E. Michael Jones if you want to understand just how profoundly evil interest is, because it steals your labor. Joe, this is a good start. Trump needs to go further.
Let me just say I agree with everything Joe Pasola said, but every president, Republican and Democrat, is on board with usury. Usury is a sin that cries to God for vengeance. It is a capital sin. And the United States, frankly, for the last, I don't know how many decades, has built an empire based upon usury and compound interest, and has done that on the backs of its own people. And there has never been a president that even suggested what Donald Trump just suggested. So I'm going to give him a little bit of credit there. But why is he saying that now, and why for 1 year? Because he's buying votes for the midterms. That is why he's doing that right now. Let's be honest. This should have been never permitted in the United States, period, because we're a Christian nation. But are we? Are we? Every president, Republican and Democrat, to their shame, has allowed big corporations to do that on the backs of its people, because they get support financially for their campaign financing. That is reality. And I'm just telling you why he's doing that now, in my view. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But he needs to win the midterms. And he's throwing people, all that is a bribe, in a sense. And to be truthful with you, that's not even the tip of the iceberg. It's not even the tip of the iceberg. Businesses should be allowed to make a profit, but that's not what's going on in the mortgage game, in the car game, and in the credit card game. It's flat out theft, and it should never have been allowed in this country. Every single president has permitted it, and you can't call yourself a Christian country when you basically enslave your own people, because debt is slavery.
And let me clarify one thing, because I can hear people say, "Yeah, but people choose to go buy things on their credit card." Okay, let me grant you that. Let me grant that you do use credit or abuse credit. That's how people go into debt, because they buy things that they don't need with money that they don't have. Now, I'm not saying that sometimes a credit card is useful for something that you do need, but let's go to things that you do absolutely need and desire: a home and mobility. Okay. Two things that I think runs right through all Americans. You want to have a place to live that you own. Okay. And you want to have a car. In that case, those are things I need. I'm not going out and putting $10,000 on a Disney vacation on my Visa card. I want to own a home. And in that particular case, you as the bank, now you are being predatory. See, it's not me just frivolously spending money. I want to buy a house. And if I live here and I have, let's say, 5 kids, and I need a larger house, and my house is going to cost $500,000. And let's say I only have 10% to put down. So I got 50% to put down, 10% to put down. I got 50 grand. Okay, I'm gonna finance $500,000, and you're gonna sit there and you're gonna justify to me taking $500,000 over the course of 30 years, and that's at a 6% interest rate. That you're gonna justify that the way you have it structured is that for the first half of that 30 years, I don't even own a half of the home.
No, that's criminal, and that should never have been allowed.
What if I lose the home?
They don't
What
care.
if I lose my home, which happens to many, many people? All that money I paid for the first 15 years,
Joe,
70% of it, 70% of the equity doesn't even belong to me.
That's exactly why it's criminal. And I got news for you. If you believe in God and think that there is an afterlife, then there is a judgment. And that is a crime that calls to God for vengeance.
Right.
That is a capital sin. And that is what has taken place in America for decades. So many people get rich off of usury. Usury is a capital sin, not my opinion. And if you call yourself a Christian and you do that to people, I got news for you. I'll go little John the Baptist, repent. Repent and get away from it, because that is a capital sin.
Well, the thing is, too, there's a way of robbing someone, using violence with a weapon.
Yeah, that is violence.
Guns,
it's economic violence. No different.
It's economic.
You might as well
It's
kill
exactly what it is.
somebody.
You're preying on the needs of other people, their desire. Let's say in the case of owning a home or having a car. That's another thing too. Real quick, and I want to play one more clip. Like General Motors. I don't know if I've said it to this. I know I've said it a million times, probably in conversation with you, Joe. But here's the thing. You sell a car. You make a profit on the car. You know it's a high-ticket item. Most people can't afford to pay for a car right up front. They have to finance it. Then what you do is General Motors creates a bank called GMAC, General Motors Acceptance Corporation. And what do? They steal your labor. So you're making money on the profit on the car, and you're making money on the interest because you've now just also become a bank. That has to be outlawed. If you're General Motors, if you have a high-ticket item, people can't afford it. You're not allowed to charge even a fee. If you got to raise your price a little bit, raise your price a little bit. But that price is that price, and you give the people the opportunity to pay it over time. And just like anything else, if they don't pay it, if they default on their payments, you go and repossess the car. But you don't need to charge usurious interest rates of more than 10%. Car loans are more than home mortgages. Okay, you don't steal. You sold somebody a car, they're going to pay you the money that they owe you over the course of 5 years or 6 years. Okay, but you're not charging them another 10 grand in interest payments over the course of that 4, 5, 6 years. No way.
Well, that's
and
how
you got to
I know
have
that our politicians, to be honest with you, and that goes for all of them, aren't serious. BlackRock should be broken up. Google, I've said this a million times on the show, Google should be broken up, and the banking system should be restructured. But it's not, because this is, again, something that before, I think it was in the 80s, actually, there was a loophole. I think it was Citibank that basically found the loophole in there used to be usury laws in America. And that's when the middle class thrived. When you had people who basically were prohibited from having a credit card because you didn't make enough money.
Right.
You're actually doing them a favor, whether you believe it or not. Some people could hear that. That's revolutionary idea. No, that's not fair.
Not.
No, I'm helping you because you can't. No,
your parents, and my parents both bought what they needed
on layaway. How about that? You buy money they had. That's right. And this is my point. That is a foreign concept to people nowadays. And it's destroyed them. And it's destroyed our culture. And that is what I'm saying. How can we call ourselves a Christian nation when we do that to our own people? That's right. All of our politicians, and we should demand better. But sadly, people buy it, and frankly, they live that lifestyle, and it's destroying America. No, let me rephrase it. It destroyed America.
That's right, and it happened both on an individual and family level, and it also happened on a national level. Not a conversation we're going to get in today. But the usurers, not only, back in the day, the usurers would lend people money. Then they figured out a way to lend governments money. Okay. And then how do you get a government to borrow more money? Well, let's convince them to go to war. But that's a conversation for another day. Maybe we'll have on E. Michael Jones. Maybe we'll invite him on to have a conversation about that. That'll be a barn burner. So I think I'm going to reach out to Dr. Jones, ask him if he wants to come on and talk about that. We got one more clip for you, and then we're going to run.
So last night I took my kids to go see fireworks at Buck Hill in Burnsville, Minnesota. A family deal, right? And as the fireworks started going off, it seemed like half the people that were there were Somalian. I make $120,000 a year and I can't even afford to bring my kids to go skiing. So we went to go watch. But as the fireworks are going off, they're cheering for Somalia, not the United States. And then they're also cheering about the daycare fraud. I've never woken up so fucking pissed off in my life. Trust the plan, right? The Q operation. I'm sorry to say it, but if the military doesn't step in sometime soon, people are going to lose their shit. I think we're all about to lose our shit. Something better happen really fucking soon. I'm tired. I'm worn out. And this whole psyop of letting everybody know what's going on, starting over 10 years ago, they started telling us all the truth of all the things that are happening. For 10 fucking years. If you've been in the know, then you've been spreading the truth too. Only to make yourself look more crazy than anyone. I quit paying my fucking taxes 3 years ago. Because of that, my wife left me, and I lost everything. Now, the IRS hasn't come to me, but if they come to me before they go after Waltz and all of these Somalians, let that last 5 seconds of silence tell you. Just let it tell you something. Something needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. Not 2 weeks from now, not on April 1st, fucking now. Mr. Trump, I know you're doing the right thing, and I know you think this operation is needed to wake up the population, to let them know what's going on before you actually do something about it. I tell you what, you better do something soon, or show some fucking action. Get your fucking DOJ out there to start making arrests and doing what's right. It's pretty fucking stupid that a 24-year-old has to go out there reporting on the fucking crime that's going on, the fraud that's going on, in order for people to stand up and do what's right. So, Mr. Trump, grow some fucking balls, get your goddamn people in order, and go out and start making the fucking arrest now.
He's been watching the front line with Joe and Joe.
A lot of people, dude. That's the voice of many people.
But here's the thing. Let's break this down for a few minutes, okay? But who is his anger directed towards? And in this case, I say rightfully, because we all know Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, they're going to call that guy a white supremacist. That's how they'll try to we all know the type of a-holes they are, okay? But you see, his anger is directed right where it's supposed to be, at Republicans, and yes, in particular, Donald Trump and his Justice Department. The fraud has been uncovered in Minnesota, okay? The Somalis that are there need to be deported if they're not American citizens. You need to go in there, you need to arrest Tim Walz, you need to arrest Jacob Fry, which they say, this is my point, they say, well, the DOJ has launched an investigation. Your ass, like my father would have said, your ass, you launched an investigation. You're not doing anything. All you're doing is window dressing. You're going to say, we launched an investigation to get to the bottom of this corruption. And you know what, Joe? You know how many people are going to end up in orange jumpsuits? Zero.
How do you take
that's why that guy's upset.
How do you take a country seriously when something to that degree is uncovered and you do nothing? You can't. Do you know that Gavin Newsom spent a ridiculous sum of money? It's in the billions on the homeless problem. And I saw a breakdown of the number. They gave an estimate of the amount of homeless people in California versus the money that was allotted to fix it. It was basically $179,000 per homeless person. And there's still a huge homeless issue. Gavin Newsom was asked, we'd like to audit. Are you going to have that budget audited? He goes, not a chance. Snidely. How could you take a government seriously, yet millions of people would vote for Gavin Newsom as president? Joe, how do you take such a country seriously? You can't. And that's the frustration of that man. Now I'm going to pivot to why I think Donald Trump isn't doing anything in a radical manner, because he has to win the midterms. And ultimately, he doesn't want to give them a point to galvanize their basic anger towards him to get out and vote, because the media will use and weaponize anything that happens against him, and it will galvanize his base. So he's kind of in a predicament politically, because he wants to and has to win the midterms. And that's why I think there is some inaction as far as coming down super hard on Minnesota, particularly using the military, which is absolutely at this point necessary. I don't think there's even an argument, not even an argument. But
Right.
that's why I think he's not doing it. But to that man's point, he is not the only person who shares that belief. I guarantee anyone who's objective, who doesn't watch ABC News, is frustrated, cannot understand how our country can allow taxpayer dollars to be wasted in that manner. Never mind anyone who would vote for that, which is, if you ask me, a schizophrenia that I will never understand, Joe Basillo.
No, I'm with you on that. And that guy, I'm glad you sent that clip, because that's our frustration. That's our frustration in a nutshell. Is like, dude, do anything. Let me tell you something, and I wish and this is why I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Republicans just have no stones. They don't have any stones. The Democrats do, though. Let's be honest. They do. They don't care how brazen they seem. They don't care how outrageous it might look. They don't care. They go ahead. Look at Virginia. The Democrats just took Virginia. The first thing they did was they made sure that they protected the so-called right of a woman to kill her child right up to the moment of birth for no reason whatsoever. None whatsoever. That's the first thing they did. They don't care. They just do it. Republicans are always, and Trump, we're not going to get on abortion. The left makes it clear that you could kill your baby. They would have it where you could kill your baby after they're born. Many of them have said that. Peter Singer, the so-called philosopher at Princeton, has said that, has argued for that as being something that's ethical. Like, if your child, if you're not happy with them in the first 6 months, you should be able to just do away with them because they have no more value than a pig. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something along those lines. We know what they're all about. They tell you this right to your face, and you don't have any stones to fight against this. You don't stand on conviction. And it's what we always say here at the front line with Joe and Joe. And this is the sad part, Joe, and then I'll give you the final word. It's because they're all effing bought and paid for. That's why you have no stones. You're all effing bought and paid for. The left is bought and paid for by their billionaire buddies, all the radicals in the world, the oligarchs. They'll get that money from. You're so afraid to cheese somebody off. And Trump, on some of these things, it's like, dude, stop dangling a carrot in front of my face and thinking that I'm some sort of Pavlov's dog and I'm just going to start salivating because I see you dangling something. I don't trust you until I see Tim Walz and Jacob Fry in orange jumpsuits and getting perp walked, just like they used to do to the made guys in Newark, New Jersey and New York back in the 80s. I want them perp walked. That's what I want. I want the public to see them in handcuffs and then get tried and then get convicted, because we all know that they're guilty. Joe, I'll give you the final word.
I'll be honest, I have nothing more to add except thank you. Great crowd tonight. Please support what we do. That's about all I could say. I mean, we show up every week. We come out there. We speak our mind. We try to be honest as we possibly can. If we're wrong, let us know. We're open to conversation. I want to thank everybody in the chat. It was a really good chat. It was a really good conversation. And we hope to see you next week.
Absolutely. And let's share this video wherever you are, Facebook, YouTube, X. Really trying to build up on X. We really love it if you help us out there in particular. But we as always, we appreciate your support. We love you very much. We'll see you next week. And remember that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk.